Let's talk about bigger things now. We've talked about design capital and small businesses, and you've given me a great deal of hope for those sort of smaller things from which we can build. What about the bigger things? What about fracking? I mean, although it's a way away and it's not in Cape Town. I mean, where do you stand on that one? On the one hand, you've got to say the right thing, and on the other hand, you've got to say, well, perhaps this will create the hundreds of thousands of jobs that Tony Twine, the late economist, said to me the day before he died.
Well, I always say what I believe, and it gets me into trouble sometimes, but I don't mind.
I get into trouble, don't I?
I don't. If the reports of the potential of the shale gas underneath the Karoo are to be believed, and the surveys are currently ongoing, we've got the 9th biggest reserve of shale gas in the world, which has enormous economic potential. In fact, if we could, in an environmentally sustainable way, release that into our energy sector, we would not only have energy security, but we would also be able to build up a massive sovereign wealth fund, which would be enormously beneficial to our economic growth over the medium and long term. So the economic potential of the shale gas that is reportedly under the Karoo is massive, and we can't simply turn our backs on it. Having said that, I understand people's environmental concerns. You cannot destroy the groundwater in a part of the country where groundwater is so scarce. People are worried about the social environment and the natural environment, and we have to understand that. And for that reason, our Minister of Environmental Affairs is, as we speak, on an international visit to look at the best practice in the area of hydraulic fracturing, or fracking as it's called, to try and determine whether the latest technology actually does work, whether it does leave a tiny environmental footprint, and whether we can do this and at least explore to establish the extent of the reserves without causing serious environmental damage, and have an informed debate rather than an emotive knee-jerk debate in South Africa.
So we have to establish the reserves, and then we have to establish the potential effect of exploiting those reserves. And are you, as Premier of the Western Cape and leader of the DIM, are you obviously very much a part of this process, this exploratory process?
Yes, absolutely. We are talking very much to all of the interested and affected parties, and I have an open mind. If we say economic growth is our number one priority so we can create the jobs we so badly need, we can't simply turn our back on this. We have to look at how we can exploit those resources without destroying the environment. That is what we have to look at. And I believe that it is possible today to do that. We're establishing whether it is and what we have to do to determine that that is so in the context of the Karoo. But we certainly can't risk polluting the groundwater.
No. Let's move up the coast now to Saldanha and talk about the Saldanha Industrial Development Zone. Are you trying to sort of create a Western Cape Kucha? Is that the goal?
No, we're not trying to do
reality?
that.
No.
We're very pleased that the national government has recognized the industrial development zone around Saldanha as one of the strategic infrastructure projects of the whole country. And we're very keen to support the national government in that, and they're supporting us in that. Saldanha Bay has a huge competitive advantage. It is the deepest port in Africa, and it's already the key export port for iron and steel. And there is enormous potential around that port to take up the slack of what we could actually be exporting through that port. And so we have to encourage industrialization there. And that is why the special economic zone, that's what the bill is called that's going through at the moment, is going to create incentives for that kind of industrial investment. And we think there is enormous potential there.
And does it have to be linked to the industry that's already there, the exports that are there, or are you going to attract other people, other types of industries to go there because it's an industrial node?
Well, the iron and steel industry already creates a wonderful magnet, if I can use that metaphor, for many other industries. But if we're looking at industrialization up the west coast of the Western Cape, which is what we're doing, we have to make sure that all the infrastructure is there, all the transport infrastructure, all the energy infrastructure. But interestingly enough, energy generation is going to be one of the key industrial development sectors that we are hoping to locate right up the West Coast. So there are many things. Oil and gas and the services sector surrounding oil and gas is going to be a major area there as well. So we're looking at a range of things.
Foreign direct investment is extremely important to South Africa. We see this, the rand going from 8.50 about 10 days ago down to 8.05. That's to do with portfolio flows, and they're capricious. They come in and out. But foreign direct investment, in other words, money coming in, building something, a factory or whatever it is, and that means that this money stays here. I mean, that's the key challenge to me, bringing in money that's not going to go out because of fund managers, portfolio managers, sharp suited yuppies looking for yield. When you talk to central government, I mean, is there competition between you trying to attract foreign direct investment down to the Cape versus the people in Gauteng looking for the same thing? Do you work together?
Well, we all have to work together. I mean, we all want to succeed because we want South Africa to succeed. That's the bottom line. And we all have different competitive advantages in the regions that we are. No question about that. I think what we need nationally is policy certainty. Investors don't like uncertainty, and especially international investors. If you want FDI, you have to have policy certainty. And that only a national government can create. We can say this is how we're going to do things in the Western Cape, and we do. And we're very clear about our direction. But the national government needs to give the lead there and create policy certainty on the area of private investment, ownership of assets, etc. Then there are things like the regulatory environment. If you make it too difficult for people, they go somewhere else because they're mobile. They choose another place. And the regulatory environment has to be significantly simplified. And then Home Affairs also has to make it a whole lot easier for people. Home Affairs has to make it easier to get working visas for people with skills to come into South Africa, to live here without all of the hassle of trying to get a work permit for years. And those are the things that the national government must do, and we will support them in doing that. And we lobby for that all the time. And so in a couple of weeks, we've got our 8% growth conference, in which we're going to be putting forward a crystal clear and agreed upon set of policies to achieve 8% economic growth. And that's what we're going for. Number one, everything else has to be filtered through the prism of how it will contribute to growth.
But the economy is extremely important to alleviate poverty, and so yeah, can we get up to 20%, do you think?
You see, our big challenge is that there are many things that you can't do in one province of the country. If you want 8% economic growth, there are a lot of things in national policy that have to change. And there is a limit to the things that we are allowed to change in a province in terms of our constitution. So, for example, there are many aspects of the regulatory environment that we can't change. Home Affairs is not under our jurisdiction, and in many of the key areas we can't establish policy certainty. But within that framework, we can say, we will back any investor in the Western Cape and make life easier. We will get rid of red tape. We will defend investments and property ownership and various other things that are essential to that investment and growth. And we will continue lobbying the national government to make those changes. But the interesting thing is, in South Africa, actually, the boundaries of political parties are quite obsolete. There are many people in the national government who agree 100% with what I'm saying now. And the irony is that we're not together in the same party. The big challenge politically in the next 7 to 8 years will get everybody who agrees, for example, that the National Development Plan is the right way to go, which actually I broadly agree with, that we get all of those people into the same party. So we can say our priority is sustained job-creating economic growth through investment, and that we can do what it takes policy-wise to achieve that. Okay. And so we really have to fix the politics of this country so that people who believe that and who are prepared to put their muscle behind it in order to redress the legacy of the past, and in order to create real opportunities for the poor to move out of poverty, that we all get together and do that, because that is South Africa's priority.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a couple of generations. Helen,
no, it's not.
I think
it's going to take a couple of years, Lindsay.
Well, let's hope so. That's very ambitious. Let's leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the first Eye on Western Cape. And thank you very much to the Premier of the Western Cape, Helen Zille.